Before Google, Facebook, or any other huge tech company was a thing, a 1992 thriller's writer already knew that the most valuable thing you own isn't your house or your car, it's your personal data, and that someone was already building a way to take it. The 90s had no social media, internet was still bare bones, no smartphones, but some movies saw it coming anyway. Surveillance, identity erasure, manufactured reality, 10 films, 10 predictions, counting down to the one that got it most exactly right. Let's go. Number 10, The Truman Show, 1998. We'll start with one you absolutely know. Jim Carrey as a man who has no idea his entire life is a 24-hour television broadcast. Every relationship scripted, every emotion content, his whole world a set. We all remember it as this clever little satire. But here's the part that got me on the rewatch, and it's not the surveillance, it's the audience. Truman's viewers don't feel sorry for him. They love him. They schedule their lives around him. They have watch parties. They cry when he's sad. And not one of them tells him the truth because his pain is comfortable to watch. The guy who runs the show even brags that he's giving people a world with no lies, no treachery, a safe, curated reality. Sound familiar? That's the pitch of every algorithmic feed you scroll. A clean, comfortable version of the world, built to keep you watching, where a real human being's authentic life is quietly turned into somebody else's product. There's a phrase for that now, surveillance capitalism. And it got coined about 5 years after this movie. And here's the detail I love. The screenwriter has said the team thought they were making an absurd fable. Then the internet showed up. And every year the movie looked less like satire and more like a documentary they didn't know they were filming. Carrey's performance still lands, by the way. And Truman choosing the scary unknown over the comfortable lie hits harder now, because in 2026, we all know exactly what he's walking away from. Number 9, Disclosure, 1994. Quick heads up, keep your eye on Michael Douglas, because he shows up again near the top of this list, and at some point you start wondering if the man had a crystal ball in his trailer. On the surface, Disclosure is a corporate thriller about a misconduct accusation used as a weapon in a power struggle. But forget the plot. The eerie prediction here isn't the accusation, it's the machinery around it. The HR procedure. The movie shows a corporate complaint system that's confidential, lopsided, where the company's legal exposure shapes the outcome more than the truth does, running like a well-oiled machine 20 years before that machinery existed at the scale we'd all end up arguing about. And here's the beat that's almost too on the nose. Douglas doesn't win with proof or testimony. He wins because he kept his emails. The whole climax turns on one idea: whoever controls the data controls the story. That's the lesson sitting at the center of basically every corporate dispute of the last 15 years. A 1994 thriller figured out that the receipts are the real weapon before most of us even had an inbox to keep receipts in. Number 8, Johnny Mnemonic, 1995. I'll be honest up front, this one isn't a good movie. The mid-90s computer graphics are unwatchable. But stay with me, because the premise is one of the most specific predictions on this whole list. Keanu Reeves with a data port in his skull, set in a very specific year, 2021. In that 2021, a global pandemic is ravaging the world, the cure exists, and the pharmaceutical companies are sitting on it, because the treatment makes more money than the cure. And the disease is caused by the human brain being unable to handle the flood of digital information hitting it every day. Information overload, as a literal plague. Now line that up with the real 2021, a global pandemic, a very public fight over pharma companies and who owns the cure, and information overload, becoming an actual mental health term. Not a perfect match, but close enough to be unsettling. And the kicker, it's based on a William Gibson story from 1981, before most homes had a computer at all. Keanu plays a man trapped inside a system of information he can't control, which, 4 years later, he'd do again in a little movie called The Matrix. Number 7, eXistenZ, 1999. This one's from David Cronenberg, 1999, and it's the kind of movie that ages like it's getting more true on purpose. eXistenZ is about a virtual reality game so immersive that players genuinely lose track of which world is the real one. But the prediction isn't the VR. We all saw VR coming. The prediction is the fight about it. In the movie, there are people, they call them realists, who are so convinced this technology is corrupting reality itself that they form cells to destroy it. And the corporation's response to that panic is just to sell it harder. The critics get dismissed as paranoid technophobes standing in the way of progress. Now think about 2026. Think about the actual argument happening right now between the companies pushing headsets and spatial computing and AI, and the people insisting this stuff is doing something bad to our brains and our kids and our grip on what's real. Same argument, same emotional temperature, same corporate shrug. Cronenberg staged the whole debate in 1999. And the creepy specific detail, in the movie you plug into the game through a bioport, a socket installed at the base of your spine, and jacking in is described as this full-body rush of pleasure. Cronenberg said flat out he was thinking about drug addiction as the model for how the tech would hook people, which is more or less the exact concern researchers raised about direct brain interface technology in the last couple of years. He wasn't predicting the gadget, he was predicting the addiction. Number 6. The Net, 1995. This one features Sandra Bullock, fresh off 1994's Speed, so the whole audience knew her face, and the premise back then felt like pure futuristic paranoia. A woman's entire identity gets erased and replaced, her social security number reassigned, her medical records rewritten to show a criminal history and mental illness, her house quietly listed for sale, her cards canceled. Overnight, she becomes a person who, on paper, does not exist, and a different person who does. Here's why it lands so hard now. The bad guys don't just steal her identity, they build a fake one with full institutional legitimacy, clean records, real credit history, a real address. So when she tries to prove she's herself, she can't, because every system that would vouch for her has already been rewritten against her. In 1995, that was science fiction. In 2026, that is a documented identity fraud playbook. There are real cases of exactly this multi-system erasure. And the part that genuinely gets me, the movie opens with her ordering a pizza online, getting a prescription refilled automatically, doing all her socializing through a screen. And in 1995, that was played as quirky, near-future stuff. Today, that's not a prediction. That's a Tuesday morning. That's most of us before lunch. They built this before most Americans had ever sent an email. Number 5. Strange Days, 1995. We've talked about this movie before. It's simply too ahead of its time. The film was written by James Cameron, directed by Catherine Bigelow, and set during the last night of 1999. At the center of it is a piece of technology called the Squid, a device that records raw, first-person sensory experience, everything you see and feel, so someone else can play it back and live it. Now watch how precisely this maps. The film's whole moral engine is one question. What happens when recorded reality gets loose in public? Who controls the footage? Who gets to see it? Does putting it out there bring justice or just set everything on fire? They were asking that in 1993 when Cameron wrote it. And that is, almost word for word, the conversation an entire country would end up having about phone video and body cam footage 2 decades later. The idea that a single recording, captured by a bystander and pushed out through a network, could become the most powerful object in the world. Bigelow shot a thriller about it before the technology to do it was in everyone's pocket. And there's a second prediction tucked inside it that's almost funnier. The movie has a black market where people pay to relive experiences through someone else's nervous system. Crimes, intimacy, extreme sensation, all secondhand. That's ASMR. That's first-person true crime content. That's the entire live through someone else's life on a screen economy we swim in now. It was too intense for audiences in '95. It plays like a forecast today. Number 4. Enemy of the State, 1998. This thing is peak Will Smith. And in 1998, people saw it as a paranoid what if. The NSA uses satellite tracking, phone intercepts, financial monitoring, and total digital surveillance to hunt down and destroy one ordinary American who accidentally ended up with evidence he wasn't supposed to have. In 2013, a guy named Edward Snowden walked out with a hard drive and revealed the NSA had been doing almost exactly this to millions of people. And here's the part that should give you a little chill. After Snowden, intelligence experts went back and reviewed this movie and called it essentially accurate. The toolkit it showed as near-future fiction: email interception, phone location tracking, real-time monitoring of an individual, the power to freeze your accounts and torch your reputation from a server room, lines up cleanly with the real programs Snowden exposed 15 years later. There's a PBS science show that, after the leaks, literally used clips from this movie to illustrate the real capabilities, because the filmmakers had somehow gotten close enough that the visuals still held up. And my favorite detail, the one that's the whole video in a nutshell. Gene Hackman plays Brill, a burned-out ex-NSA guy living off the grid in a building wrapped in copper foil to block surveillance. In 1998, he's the paranoid lunatic of the movie. Watch it now, and the uncomfortable truth is, Brill wasn't paranoid. Brill was just early. Number 3. Wag the Dog, 1997. Dustin Hoffman and Robert De Niro, both having the time of their lives. The setup: a president gets caught in a sex scandal, so a spin doctor and a Hollywood producer team up to bury it by manufacturing a war, a completely fake war. They invent a threat, they invent a folk hero soldier, and they fabricate news footage. And the networks run it as real. There's one scene that is the entire reason this is at number 3. The team stands on a blue screen stage and builds a piece of news footage, a terrified girl running from a burning village, with an actress and a prop and some visual effects. Once it's graded and aired, it's indistinguishable from real war coverage. Now here's the thing. In 1997, pulling that off required a Hollywood studio, a serious budget, and a TV network willing to air it. And it worked because back then, TV had a monopoly on what counted as real. In 2026, that scene requires a laptop, a free AI tool, and an account. That's it. The movie didn't age into being relevant. It aged into being easy. It showed you a scam that needed a studio and warned you about it. That scam now fits in a browser tab, and anybody can run it. And the timing? This is the genuinely spooky part. The writer said he was reaching for something that could never really happen, something absurd, like a president caught up in a tawdry scandal. The movie came out, and within about a month, a real presidential sex scandal broke. Within months, there was a real military strike on a very convenient day, and commentators were openly asking on the record whether the movie had handed somebody the playbook. They didn't predict one thing here, they predicted the whole machine. Number 2, The Game, 1997. And here's Michael Douglas again, the accidental prophetic face of the entire decade. First disclosure, now this. The man could not stop making movies that came true. The Game, 1997, directed by David Fincher right before Fight Club. Douglas plays a cold, rich guy who's given a game by a mysterious company. An immersive experience that quietly takes over his real life, uses his actual relationships as props, and yanks his emotions around without his consent, all while he thinks he's the one in control. In 1997, this was a surreal, almost dreamlike premise. In 2026, it is a flat description of the business model behind every platform on your phone. Look at how the company's product actually works. It's built on one principle. They know more about you than you know about yourself. And they use that lopsided knowledge to construct an experience aimed precisely at your fears, your relationships, your specific weak spots. All of it pulled from a questionnaire he filled out at the start. I mean, that's it. That's the targeted data playbook. That's the feed that somehow always knows exactly which thing will get a rise out of you. And the most prescient line in the whole movie comes when Douglas asks what the game is even for, and the answer he gets is, to get you out of your head, which is, word for word, the pitch of every attention product invented since. A 1997 thriller wrote the mission statement of the modern internet, and Fincher shot it as a nightmare, because that's what it was. Number 1, Sneakers, 1992. And here it is, the one I built this whole video around. Sneakers, 1992. And I need you to sit with that year for a second. 1992. There is no public internet. Almost nobody you know has email. And Phil Alden Robinson makes a thriller about a little black box that can break any encryption on Earth, read any system, any bank, any government, any private message, and the NSA's desperate, ruthless scramble to get hold of it so they can have total surveillance over everyone, everywhere. Everything else on this list predicted a trend. Reality TV, identity theft, fake news, surveillance creep. Sneakers predicted a specific classified program that wouldn't become public for 21 years. Let me show you exactly how close it got. Ben Kingsley's villain gives this speech, written in 1991, about how the real war is about who controls the information, what we see, what we hear, how we work, what we think. That's the cold open of this video, and it's not atmosphere, it's a brief. Because the movie's actual plot device is specific, a secret mathematical backdoor, hidden inside an encryption standard, invisible to everyone using it, that lets one government agency quietly read everything. In 2013, the Snowden documents revealed the NSA had a program called Bull Run that had secretly broken much of the encryption protecting the internet, and had done it partly by inserting a backdoor into a real encryption standard, one that ended up in something like 900 million devices. A mathematical backdoor, hidden in a standard, controlled by one agency. The exact thing the movie made up in 1992, except the movie was kind enough to put it in a little black box you could see. In reality, it was a few lines of code nobody was allowed to know about, and the filmmakers had no secret sources. They just read the public reporting on the NSA in the early 90s and followed it to its logical end. They got there 21 years early, so here's where I landed. In 1992, before most of us had ever sent an email, a group of screenwriters made up a thriller about a government agency that secretly broke all the world's encryption so it could read every communication on Earth. In 2013, that stopped being a thriller. It turned out to be the news. So what do we do with that? Because I'll be honest, after going down this hole, I don't fully think these filmmakers were psychic. I think they were just paying close attention, looking at where the technology and the power and the money were pointing, and being brave enough, or cynical enough, to follow the line all the way out. The future was already in the room in the 90s. Most people just weren't looking at it. These movies were. So now I want to hear from you. Which one of these did you grow up on without realizing what it was actually about? Which prediction landed the hardest? The surveillance, the fake footage, the deleted identity? And, be honest, which 90s thriller did I miss? The one you'd thread up next? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. That's it from the booth. Go rewatch one of these tonight. I promise it plays completely different now. This has been Victor at Picture Recall. Lights up.